Here we are at Anfield for a change, it's press conference new, and we are here because the press conference is about to start, even though the match has just finished. Liverpool have just beaten Leicester 3-1 to go 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and I'm about to find out exactly what Arne Slot felt about it. Now, because these pre-match, post-match press conferences are a little bit shorter than normal, I may not necessarily get a chance to ask him the question myself, but I'm going to give it a go. I guess we'll find out when we get back to the lab.
Hello everyone, we are back in the lab. It is no longer night, it is day. We are recording this on Friday the 27th. All press conference coverage was embargoed yesterday until 1:30 today, so it made sense for me to enjoy the rest of my evening after a fantastic Liverpool victory and come back into work here on Friday morning to give you everything you need to know about the pre-match press conference ahead of the game against West Ham. Now, the way that we've been doing it recently with the post-match press conference followed immediately by a pre-match press conference means that the press conferences themselves have been a little bit smaller, but don't you worry, there's still plenty of important information to go on. There's going to be still 3 top takeaways, and we start as we always do with the injury news. Now, Arne Slot mentioned that Conor Bradley and Ibrahim Konate will not be fit to play against West Ham. They still haven't come into team training. However, he did not rule out the potential for them to join team training ahead of the game against Manchester United. And when you consider the way that that game falls on January the 5th, the first game of 2025, a massive game for Liverpool, no matter where both teams are in the table, it's encouraging that they might be close enough to make some part in that game. But hey, Liverpool doing pretty well without them so far, and long may that continue. So let's go into the top 3 takeaways, and the first one is actually from the post-match press conference, but it was an important point that I thought I wanted to bring up. Top takeaway number 1, sometimes your plan is also their plan. Now, Slot mentioned that he was actually very happy with Liverpool's first half performance, with the exception of the 1 minute in which they conceded. He said that Liverpool created a lot of chances, we put lots of balls into their box, and arrived there with many players. Now, any of you who are watching the Spurs game will have noticed that Liverpool were flooding the box on lots of opportunities. So clearly, that's something that they've been working on. But crossing was something that probably was on a lot of people's minds after that first half, because Liverpool were doing it a lot, but they weren't really doing it very well. 35 crosses they made in that first half, and only 7 of them were deemed as successful, which is 1 in 5. And that's not a very good ratio. And when you look at the way Leicester were playing, they were giving Liverpool space on those flanks. They were flooding the centre of the pitch. So they were saying, go out there, cross the ball, we'll back Conor Cody and Yannick Vestergaard to deal with it. And largely they did. There was a chance early on for Salah at the back post, and the one that Andy Robertson heads against the post. But other than that, Liverpool weren't that dangerous from crosses. Another interesting fact from the Shazam stats, Andrew Beasley, shout out to Bees, he noted that Liverpool actually broke their Premier League record for crosses across this game, according to FPref. FPref had them at 48, SofaScore had them at 50. Either way, it's more than they've ever made in a Premier League game. Now, the interesting part about this fact is that if you look at the top 12 games that Liverpool made crosses in, yesterday's was only the second of those 12 in which Liverpool won. So you could say that making multiple crosses like that is a sign that the attack isn't working rather than it's part of the game plan. So maybe that's something for Arne Slot to consider moving forward. Top takeaway number 2, pressure is a privilege. Now, Arne Slot was asked by Alan Myers about whether or not Liverpool feel pressure of being at the top of the table and being 7 points clear with the game in hand. And he answered this the way he's always answered the question whenever that word is brought up. And it was possibly my favourite answer of the whole press conference. It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. He said, you're talking to the Liverpool manager. There's always pressure. That's what they're there for. That's what he signed up for. That's what he's relishing. That's what he's ready for. And you sense that there's not just him who says that, it's the whole squad. And I think it's a fascinating difference between the way Chelsea have been dealing with it and Enzo Maresca, who's been talking down his team's chances of winning the league, very much saying, oh, we can't win it, we're not that team yet. And that's very much been seen as a sign of him trying to take pressure off of his team, which in the circumstances has been seen as smart. However, you could also say that they're basically afraid of pressure. They're shying away from pressure. They're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. It doesn't affect them. It's not in their world. Meanwhile, Liverpool are fully aware of pressure. They embrace pressure. They know that anyone who wants to be champions has to be able to deal with pressure. They're not running away from it. They're not hiding from it. They're running towards it. And hopefully, when it comes to Liverpool's Premier League ambitions, that's going to be a very good thing. Again, I mentioned last week, there are plenty of people in this Liverpool team and squad who know exactly what it takes to win a Premier League title. Chelsea don't quite have as many. Arsenal have a few, but again, not quite as many. And maybe in the final shake-up, that'll become very important. Top takeaway number 3, Dom denied himself some more dominance. Now, obviously, I love a bit of alliteration, but maybe calling Dom Szoboszlai dumb 1 week after such a fantastic display at Spurs feels a little bit harsh. But then, when you see what he did, it's kind of understandable. Arne Slot had resisted bringing Dom Szoboszlai into the game against Leicester until the 77th minute. 3 minutes later, he picked up a yellow card, which meant that he was suspended for the game against West Ham. Now, Slot was keen to stress exactly how outstanding Dom Szoboszlai was in that game against Spurs. And when you think about it, there are lots of similarities between Spurs away and West Ham away. Both of them have a big pitch, which means pressing and covering ground is really important. Both of them are teams who are probably better at attacking than they are at defending, which means that the way you play is going to be certainly dictated by their style a little bit. And also, it's a result that we wanted to improve on from last season. Obviously, Spurs away, we all know what happened there. West Ham away, we ended up drawing. That was the game where Salah and Klopp had their little set-to on the sideline, which became all of the headlines and kind of clouded the rest of the end of that season. So we need to put that right. And Dom Szoboszlai not appearing against Leicester until the 77th minute was kind of Arne Slot saying that I wanted him to start against West Ham. In fact, he actually did say that Dom was in line for a start against West Ham. And then obviously his suspension means that he can't do that. It's funny because I've kind of worked out a little bit how to read between the lines of Arne Slot. And as I said, he was very, very effusive in his praise of Dom Szoboszlai's performance. He said he'd been outstanding. But then he says someone else is going to have to be outstanding against West Ham. So you kind of got the sense that he was a little bit annoyed that Dom had got himself that stupid yellow card, because frankly he really didn't need to do it. He was chasing back after someone, he pulled them back, and Liverpool were in position. They could have dealt with it without him having to do that. And yes, he's going to get the whole of the West Ham game to kick his heels and watch from the sidelines. But as Slot mentioned, the opportunity now is for someone else to be outstanding. And we shouldn't forget the fact that the person who replaced Dom Szoboszlai in the starting lineup for Leicester was Curtis Jones. And what did he do? He scored a goal. He had a very good performance, particularly in the second half. So it's very much a next man up mentality at Liverpool. We also have seen Harvey Elliott feature a few times, and Slot has been keen to name check Elliott a couple of times when talking about players coming back from injury. Normally when someone wants to talk about Diogo Jota, he's always tried to throw Harvey Elliott into the mix as well. And those of us who saw a lot of Liverpool in pre-season up close and personal, Harvey Elliott was a big factor in the early days of Arne Slot. So I believe that he does trust him and he's waiting for him to be at the right state of physical fitness to be able to throw him in. So don't be surprised if we see a little bit more of Harvey Elliott in the coming weeks as well. So as much as Arne Slot was probably really annoyed with Dom Szoboszlai, it might end up being Dom who ends up hurting himself with that silly yellow card, because Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott might make it difficult for him to get straight back into the team. That's the beauty of having a fully fit squad, firing, hungry, and all wanting to do their best for the team. And now it's time for my customary question, which I did manage to sneak in there. It was a little bit of a longer press conference than I had anticipated, so I managed to ask him there. I asked him about one of the West Ham players, someone who we've been linked with quite a few times for the upcoming transfer window. Now, you mentioned injuries and suspensions. It looks like West Ham might be without all three central midfielders who started against Southampton, with Rodriguez, Sojek suspended, Carlos Soler went off injured. You faced Mohammed Kudus a lot when he was at Ajax. Do you think there's a chance he may line up in central midfield, and how good a player do you believe he can be?
I think he's a good player. That's for sure. Everybody sees this. He can play multiple positions. I think he played here for Ajax against Liverpool as a 9 as well. So he's a big threat for them. They have many players. I think they've signed also many players during the summer. So even if 3 midfielders are out, I don't think they have to play under 21 players. They are still able to play players they brought in for many millions. So yeah, that's the Premier League. They all have, not only us or Chelsea. It's for a lot of clubs have so many good players. We, although were the one when I didn't play my starters, we used our 21 players. That is part of our identity, and that's what makes this club special, I think, as well.
Now, this was another Arne Slot answer that wasn't really about what the question was about. Now, don't get me wrong, he did answer my question. He talked about the quality of Kudus, talked about the versatility of Kudus. Quite a few people have picked up on the fact that he mentioned that he played as a 9 when he came to Liverpool, when he was playing for Ajax in the Champions League a few years back. So he's fully aware of his versatility, although he's not necessarily thinking he's going to end up in central midfield. We'll have to wait and see. He did mention the fact that they have lots of other players. The part that I think most people hooked up on was the many millions that he mentioned the West Ham spent. And you can take that 2 different ways, I think. You can look at it and say, Arne Slot saying, well, hey, other teams can't really start complaining about having injuries and having players missing because, look, you're all rich. You've all got fantastic players in reserve to come and bring in. And so Liverpool aren't the only ones who will be able to say, well, we've got quality backups, we shouldn't be concerned about injuries. So it's become a bit of a running theme so far that other teams have complained about having key players missing when they face Liverpool, almost as if Liverpool haven't had key players missing at the same time. It's just the way it goes. But also, you could look at it and say that this is the main difference between where he's been, i.e. the Eredivisie, and here in the Premier League. Even teams like West Ham, who are in the bottom echelons of the table, have spent over £100 million in the last summer on talent. Everybody has quality players. There are no easy games in the Premier League. So as much as you could say that he's making a slight point about how everybody needs to just deal with what they got, because frankly, you're all rich, he could also be making a point to his team. There are no easy games. Everybody has got quality within their squad. Anybody can turn up on any given day and give you a big game and a big tough game. And I think that's exactly what Arne Slot is expecting when we go to the London Stadium on Sunday. As much as you can look at West Ham's current league position and say this is a game Liverpool should be winning, you can also look at some of their big games against some of the title rivals. They've lost at home to Manchester City, they've lost at home to Arsenal, they've lost at home to Chelsea, conceded at least 3 goals in all those games. But that was a while ago now. That was earlier in the season when they were still kind of figuring it out. The latest big team to go there, I use the word big in inverted commas, was Manchester United, and they won that game. So West Ham have the ability to rise to the occasion when it comes to the big teams coming to town. As we saw ourselves last season and have seen on a few other times, this has always been a tricky fixture for Liverpool. I don't think there's been any time apart from maybe during the COVID season where Liverpool went there and won easily. So they're going to have to be at their best. They're going to have to find someone else other than Dom Szoboszlai who's going to be outstanding. In fact, I suspect they might need to find 10 or 11 people who are going to be outstanding. But hey, guess what? Liverpool have got 10 or 11 outstanding players, and hopefully they bring it all because they know exactly how good a position they're in, and they know that if they keep winning, then there's not a lot anyone else can do, and that's the real crunch here. So there we go. I managed to get quite a bit out of that very small press conference review. So a big thank you to all of you. A big thank you to all of you for putting up with my patience. It's been a bit of an interesting week. I've been struggling with I've had to buy a new computer and then it didn't arrive on the day it was supposed to arrive, so I've had to postpone this and that and the other, and all of my schedule's gone out of whack. But fear not, I am still here bringing you all quality content. Speaking of quality content, I still have my Substack page. Please go out and subscribe to that. Find all that you want to find there in terms of my writing, my ideas that don't come out through my mouth, that come out from my brain and my pen. There are plenty of good ones there as well. And hey, we get to do all this again very soon. Next up, Manchester United. See you soon.